Hello, hello, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started now. Welcome to Evenings for Educators. My name is Laura Schilling, and I'm the Teacher Programs Coordinator at LACMA. Thank you for joining us for day 3 of our STEAM-focused program during the program's 40th anniversary year. I want to take a moment to extend our respect, first and foremost, to the Indigenous peoples whose lands we also call home. This includes the Gabrielino Tongva, Gabrielino Kizh, Fernandeño Tataviam, and Ventureño Chumash peoples. It is their ancestral and unceded lands that we live, work, and play on, and we share an enormous responsibility to care for this land and all its inhabitants so that future generations may thrive here. Now I'm going to go ahead and introduce tonight's workshop instructor, Judy Blake. Judy is currently a teaching artist for LACMA. She is a registered art therapist and an artist who works predominantly in glass and fabric. Judy has taught art to people of all ages and abilities, including children who are visually and/or hearing impaired and those with other challenges. She has also taught teacher workshops at the Getty Center and LACMA, as well as docent workshops in family and adult classes at the Skirball Cultural Center. Thanks so much for being here with us, Judy. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you now.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, and welcome to Napkin Art. I first want to say that I'm really passionate about making sure that art and academics are tied together. I think all kids learn better. So this workshop is, you're going to have fun, we're going to relax together, and it's educational, and hopefully you'll be able to use it with your students. I tweaked a lesson that I had been doing in the classroom for years, so it met up with at-home standards during COVID. So I tried to do this lesson with materials that most families would have at home. And at the end, I will try to have time to demonstrate the actual classroom lesson I do. So first, just to review, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to review supplies that you'll need. They're all very simple. We're going to be looking at 2 pieces of artwork in LACMA's collection and talk about them. And then we're going to go over different concepts and vocabularies you can use with your classroom with this lesson. And then we're going to create and have fun together. Then you'll go into break rooms. So let's get started. Let's start with supplies. So really important, if you don't have a paper napkin, you can use a paper towel or a white coffee filter. The one thing you really need are 3 markers, washable, yellow, blue, and red. And you need something to protect your table with. It can be a brown bag, like from Trader Joe's, or now they come in plastic, or an old plastic tablecloth, or you can use a sponge or a paper towel if you don't have a sponge. You'll see I'm using an old sponge and a small amount of water. Really quickly, let's just go over the primary colors. These are the primary colors when you're talking about art: red, blue, and yellow. And the secondary, they create the secondary colors by mixing them. Blue and yellow equal green, blue and red, purple or violet, and red and yellow create orange. Now the primary colors when you're talking about light are red, blue, and green. We're not going to discuss that tonight. All right, let's talk about our first artist. So this artist, his name is Hartley. This picture is called Abstraction, blue, yellow, and green. This artist is an American modernist. He was also a poet. He was born in Maine and worked mostly on the Upper East Coast, but he did go to Europe for several stints and became friends with Picasso, Mark, Kandinsky, and several other artists. He was really taken with Cubism. And he also, this picture he painted with his great interest in the theory of color. and how color worked together. He used the primary colors, and then he used introduced black and white to those colors. He got the lines very straight, and that's to bring different planes to the different colored pieces. Let's look at our next artist who's very different, but also interested in color. So this is a work by Benjamin. And he was an abstract expressionist and part of the hard edge painting movement. He used a lot of his paintings with very geometric shapes. So I'm going to do a little quote. He was asked to develop an art lesson for his students' curriculum. He began working with crayons and became fascinated with the phenomenon of how colors can appear to change when juxtapositioned with other colors. So this gentleman, Benjamin, was an artist, but his first love and occupation, which he continued through his whole life, was as an educator. He worked for 30 years in Chino in elementary school. And so now all of you guys can become famous artists in your second occupation, like he did. So really quickly, let's take a second out and you can write in the chat. And let's discuss maybe you can put in the chat a short question you might ask your students about how they would compare these two artists' work. Anybody? We want to look at the straight lines, the colors, the textures of the two different artists.
Hey, Judy. So we're getting some responses coming in the chat. We're seeing some really great questions like, what do you see that is similar and different? What do you notice? What shapes do you see? What colors do you see? How would you compare the primary colors, the lines, the composition? Some really good questions.
Great. So these are all questions you can share with your students. So now let's go into the next slide, please. All right. So these are some of the concepts and vocabularies that I came up with for this lesson. First of all, primary colors, secondary colors. Geometric shapes you can add into this. I just wrote a few, there are many more. Older kids can start learning the difference between geometric shapes and organic shapes, type of lines, direction of lines, symmetry. Now, you might not want to teach symmetry to the very young kids, but this lesson does work itself into doing bilateral and radial symmetry, which I can show you as we work in a minute. Abstract art versus realistic art, how colors bleed together to create new colors, and how to create a scattered design. So let's start working. All right, so this is one way I show kids how to mix colors. Now, by all means, if you have paint and you want to use paint with them, go for it. But this is one neat, simple way to do it. It's cellophane, and if you mix them together, yellow and red mixed together to make orange, blue and red together mixed to make purple, and yellow and blue together mixed to make green. So it's one very simple way to do that. So I'm going to put that aside and get a napkin. Now, at this point, if you don't have a napkin and you want to use a paper towel, this is a small paper towel. They're often double the size, but you get the idea. You can just fold it once. I wouldn't fold it more than once if it's a thicker piece. And if you have a napkin that's then folded like this, some didn't open it at least once. So it's only folded 4 times. Now, starting to teach different concepts. Well, you can teach the center of where the center of our napkin is. Is this the center? Well, it is when it's folded, but it isn't the center when we open it up. Now, I don't want anybody to open it all the way, but if you look over here, will be the center where all the corners come together. I often like to start coloring in that. That just keeps me focused. So I'm going to do that and then go over some of the other things that you can do with the students, and you can start working also. Make sure you have, this is a Trader Joe's bag that I turned inside out so you wouldn't see all the words. It'd be less distracting. So I'm going to start with the center over here.
Hey, Judy. Judy, I have a question in the chat for you real quick of where can you find colored cellophane?
I think Michael's. I'm so sorry.
I found some on Amazon.
All right. LACMA kind of gets that for us, but I buy relatively big rolls and then cut little pieces, and there are lots of lessons we could go over another time. But yes. Okay, so now if you want to teach lines, you can teach curvy lines. The one thing with this lesson is you need to go slowly. So as adults, you can really relax. Go slowly. You want it to leak through. You can talk about vertical, horizontal lines, straight lines. I'm just giving you samples of different things you can do. Now, the one and only thing, you want to go slowly so it leaks through, and you want the blue to overlap some of the yellow. I started with yellow because yellow is the lightest color. You want the red to overlap with the blue and the yellow also. All right, zigzag lines. All right, now another thing you can do is show kids, here's the fold. They can do a design on the fold. Go slowly. And you can see what I'm doing, but the younger kids can't really see that. Now, for those of you who are working with special needs kids, we can do things like, or very young preschool, you can have them put a dot and you hold it down at an angle, and I usually count to 3. I go 1, 2, 3, whee! And scatter your your dots. 1, 2, 3, whee! Oh, 1, 2, 3, whee! All right. Now I want to make sure I get some red near the blue and the yellow, because we want our colors to bleed all together. All right. Now you need to kind of experiment, unless you can figure it out. Here's diagonal lines, another good term to teach kids. Dots, overlapping lines. All right, hopefully you're just relaxing and creating something fun. All right. 2, 3, whee! You can also assign kids like, please do 3 dots, and then let's do another color in 3 dots, or 5 dots, whatever number you're working with. It's a great way to add numbers. Now, everybody can keep drawing for a little while. I'm going to stop and I'm going to put the water on. It doesn't take, I'm going to do one more. I changed my mind. There we go. All right. Water. If everybody looks just for a second, I have a very small amount of water. And once again, you're near a computer, have kids put a very small amount. I'm using an old sponge. I dip it in and I wring it out. You want to get the napkin wet. You don't want to flood the house or the table or whatever surface. And you're just going to press water on it. All right. Now you can see just a little bit of water everywhere. All right, everybody can keep working. Now, another good thing or fun thing to do is kids can write about what happened to the line, what happened to their colors. You know, I drew a straight line and now it's all wavy. These are all kind of things they can think about. Now, you're probably still creating a little bit. I'm going to put mine aside and I'm going to show you what I do in a classroom because I want to make sure you see this. All right, I'm going to move my piece of artwork over a little bit. So when I go into a classroom, I use diffusing paper. Let's turn it the right way. Diffusing paper. Okay? I cut it in half. Use a piece like this. But if you don't have diffusing paper, you can use coffee filter. It's the same thing. It's much less expensive. And you can teach different things on it. A fun thing to do is teach, have kids do quarter. Divide their paper into quarters. You're still using the same markers, the same 3 markers. And now you can have them do 1 circle in each quarter. And it can become a real good math lesson. You can have them do spirals. There are just so many things you can do. Then, the difference here, as I now, is instead of using a sponge, which you can do again, but you can buy, these are very inexpensive that you can get on the internet, like 50 of them together. They're very inexpensive and they're safe for kids to use. And it is a water dropper, okay? It is not a turkey baster like one of my students did ask or tell me that it was one time. And this is a great science lesson. Let me add a few more lines just so you see the color. And the more color on the paper, no matter what you're doing, if you're doing the napkin, or the diffusing paper. The more color, the better. So the kids who are very young and just need to do lots of lines, well, that's just fine. They can just do lines one way and then they can do lines another way. They can do the dots again, big circles. They can draw squares, triangles, whatever you want your lesson to be. For the older, slightly older kids, or the kids I'm trying to teach to listen and follow directions, I will then give specific, like, let's draw 3 lines vertically, 3 lines horizontally. But as you know, as a teacher, you can do whatever you want. So now the science behind getting water into the dropper, it's a great question to ask kids. You know, you explain you can't pour it in. How does it go in? And even in kindergarten, once in a while, you get somebody who really figures it out. Then how do you get the water out? Well, you don't want to squeeze it hard. You want to squeeze it so it's 1 drop at a time. So there we go. And the colors just blend together. And kids of all ages really like the dropper. It's great working with fine motor skills. And you get this beautiful circle design that doesn't work on plain paper. The diffusing paper, it really works on. All right. Now, I think you understand that. The hardest thing, I'm going to go back to the napkin now. So the hardest thing about the napkin, and the only hard thing, is giving it time to dry a little bit. For kids, it's a little tricky to open, but I am going to open it. Excuse me. There we go. So you guys can see and get some ideas from what I did. Be careful opening. There we go. Let's move. All right, so are you guys putting different shapes on yours, lines? Are you creating a symmetrical piece of artwork? Are you getting into the holiday that's coming up this weekend? It's another fun thing to do. I'll show you another one I did later.
Judy, we have another question in the chat.
Excellent.
Someone is wondering what the objective or specific learning outcome or outcomes are for this project.
So we are working on showing kids how colors blend together when they're mixed. So you can see, I will often go back, well, I always go back and I say, raise your hand if you have green in the artwork. Well, how did you get that? So it blends, the colors blend together, the blue and the yellow blend together to create green, and purple and orange. So you're blending colors from primary to secondary. Then you also can add as much math as you want, as far as depending on what level you're at teaching. Teaching different type of lines is another, which is more art-based, but the math behind teaching diagonal lines, vertical lines, horizontal lines, shapes, Now mine, I didn't do as many shapes here, but you certainly could have drawn squares, triangles. It's also very magical on how the water bleeds together, and you now have created, you only drew I drew half of one heart, and now I have 2 full hearts on the paper. So there's a lot of science behind how all the shapes come out also. Now you're going to put, Laura, did you put the link in for them to take photographs of their work?
Not just yet. We're gonna go ahead and put that link in the chat now. It's a Google Slides presentation link, and we just invite everybody to take a photo of their artwork, put a photo in the presentation for us, and we'll do a little run through of it at the end. We'd love to see the artwork that you're creating with us this evening.
So once you take a photo, it's pretty easy to download it into that. So they're higher level. Well, I'll show you here. Here is, if you can look and do your artwork. I did this earlier. And it's kind of a fun thing to put on your table for Valentine's. These are not, you can hang them in the window, though they will, the color won't last for a really long time. But it is fun to put, to decorate your table with if you wanted to do that. But back, yeah. All right. So I hope people are just kind of relaxing and getting into these colors, and you're only using 3 markers, so you don't have to think about different colors or what color to use next. All right. Now, if you think yours is done, you can try opening it up already. See what colors you got. I always find lessons like this, well, especially with kids, but with adults also, it's kind of fun to do it more than once, because then you really learn from the first time what happens. I think it's really important that kids sometimes learn from their mistake. When they're making hearts, especially, if they don't do it on the fold, it doesn't come out as a heart. It just comes out as an interesting shape. All right. Now, so remember all the different shapes. I mean, if you're teaching ovals, then do ovals. You also can do patterns. And if you do a pattern of yellow, yellow, red dots across, and then another pattern, when you put the water on, the pattern will automatically spread over the whole page. And you only worked on 1/4 of a piece of paper, and you'll have your pattern everywhere. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. And kids really like kind of the magic behind using water and seeing what happens.
Hey, Judy, we have a couple questions coming in the chat. Mm-hmm. A couple experiments with coffee filters and paper towels that were a little too thick, and so the marker didn't come through. Do you have any suggestions on how to remedy that?
Did they go slow. I've done paper towels. Did they fold it more than once? They must have you want to go pretty slowly. And did they get it pretty wet? Maybe get it a little wetter. That would be my only suggestion, because I have done paper towels.
Thanks, Judy. There's also a question about how long to wait for the napkin to dry. Somebody said there's Tor.
Well, now mine has been a few more minutes, but it has been open, so it's drying faster. Yeah, that is probably the biggest problem. If I was, when you do this with kids, and if the kids are, kindergarten, first grade, you probably want them to set it aside and not open it for, come back after lunch and we'll open it type of thing. And let it dry for, an hour. You probably don't need an hour, but to be safe, you could do that. I will often do that to finish the work a little later, to take when we paint with tape or something. You just wait a little bit, and it does not diminish the lesson at all.
Thanks, Judy. There's one more question about whether this could possibly work with fabric, like cotton.
Aha. So, yes, but it can't wash. So you can do a lesson, and I have, but not with children. So this is, not with young children. You can do the same thing with Sharpies, but Sharpies don't wash off and they're not really safe with young children. And then you use rubbing alcohol. So you use the same dropper and use rubbing alcohol to drop onto it. And so that works really, you get really interesting results with that. Doesn't wash great. So like before COVID, I always use fabric napkins. And then when COVID hit and we wanted to keep cleaner, we got some paper napkins, but if you want to decorate, like white or off-white napkins, you can do it with Sharpie and rubbing alcohol. Just cheap, ordinary. You want your windows open because the rubbing alcohol, and you literally put dots and put a drop of rubbing alcohol and it just bleeds. So you want to try it on scraps of fabric first. It's a really fun project to do.
Thanks, Judy.
Oh, sure.
So what you recommend is do drying in between some of this to prevent, because my paper towel just kept ripping. Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I haven't had that problem, but I did say that especially the thin, cheaper napkins are pretty fragile. Okay, so we're going to get ready to go into breakout rooms. You'll be with other teachers, spend a minute introducing yourselves, and you'll be there 10 minutes and ask different questions, and what questions you'd propose to your students. Once again, it's like, did I give you green? Well, how did green come out on your napkin or on your diffusing paper? What other things would you use? What shapes or lessons or would you teach patterning with this lesson? And some of the other things. And I find, especially with the younger kids, I think the idea of the kind of magic behind working on a quarter of a piece of paper and it's spreading, kids find really exciting. Okay, you'll automatically go into breakout rooms, be assigned breakout rooms.
Great. I think most people are in the breakout rooms now. If you're in the main room and you have any questions for Judy, you can go ahead and ask her now. Judy, there was one teacher in the chat who was hoping that you might demonstrate again. She had to step out for a time and she missed your initial demonstration.
Right now?
If that's possible, yeah.
Sure. Okay. Is the person in the room now? Oh, okay. Hi, Sally. Is that? Okay. Napkin. 3 markers.
Can we put a spotlight on Judy's table, please? Thank you.
Okay. So depending on how old the kids you're working with, do you want them to know the middle of the folded page or the center, or to create something symmetrical or not? You can teach straight lines, vertical lines, horizontal lines, shapes. You can draw anything on the napkin. You just need to be a little careful and draw slowly so it bleeds through. But the water will help it bleed through at the end. So I'm going to start in the center of the whole piece of paper and kind of make a, the other thing you want to remember is that the yellow, all the colors need to overlap. You need to go slowly. See how slowly, because you want it to bleed through. Okay. All right. All right, slowly. I'm going to do it a little faster now just because I don't want to run out of time. You can do, if your kids, for really young kids, you can just put dots. You can pretend it's just a square piece of paper and do patterns across, red, blue, whatever. You want the blue and the yellow to cross, curvy lines, zigzag lines, straight lines. Dots, scattered. A lot of kids do not know what the word scattered a design means. A little bit everywhere. Do I have? Okay. Do you have the idea? Okay, then.
I didn't realize my mute was on.
Okay.
Yes.
Old sponge.
Okay.
wring it out a little bit. Whoop. And then just and of course, reminding kids they're using water near computers. And then the hardest thing probably is to open it up while the hardest thing is to let it dry and not open it up. But I'm going to open it up while it's wet because I can do that. But kids might might have trouble doing that.
So you were saying let it for like at least 20 minutes to an hour?
Yeah, let it dry for a while. Yeah. All right, now see, I'm even having trouble. There we go. See
Okay.
how the pattern, that's half of it. Now, many adults can open it, but, especially a kindergarten kid would have trouble opening this. And then it opens up all the way. Of course, I'm having trouble right now because, there we go.
Are those water-based markers?
Water-based markers, absolutely.
Thank you.
Now, you can do something like this for adults with Sharpies, and rubbing alcohol. Okay. See, you can see how it's a little tricky when it's really wet.
Nice.
But there you go. You get a real kaleidoscope kind of look. I don't know if kids know what kaleidoscopes are, but you do get a kaleidoscope.
This kid does.
All right. Kid at heart. Absolutely. So it's kind of, it's a fun, relaxing thing. And if you can get them not to touch it for a while, and put it aside and do a fun another activity. And now a lot of the colors, and have them look for the green, and green always turns out the best. Can't tell you why, no matter what projects I do with markers. The blue and yellow bleed together better than the other two colors. But, here I have purple and here I have orange. It's just not as dramatic. That's the
Nice. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
So the other material that you use, I think you said it was a deli paper, or
it's diffusing paper.
diffusing. Okay.
Diffusing paper, but it's the same thing as coffee filters.
Okay.
So, and coffee filters are sometimes fun to do with little kids. You can have them put just red, or yellow and blue on it, and create green, and just, you can control whatever color. Then you can actually make flowers.
Okay. Nice.
If you're doing kindergarten, it
Right.
works.
Okay.
Then
My
you do
kids
whole
are-
lesson on flowers and the stem and the.
Right. Nice. I like. My kids are 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So it's kind of challenging because I don't want something too easy and I don't want something too hard. So I kind of I tend to go more on the hard side, and the younger kids seem to adapt more. They're the ones that are more, they have more of a thought process when they're doing the work. And today my place is a mess right now because I taught a art class today with my caregiving group. I'm part of a caregivers group, and so we made I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah,
Valentine's cards. I taught them how to use watercolor a little, and so we did that, and then we did some other watercolor. Oops, I haven't put it together yet, but they're cut up, and I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, lovely.
That's why I'm all over the place today. So thank you for
sure
doing it.
But this can really expand over. I did another one where I did half of a heart on a page, which is a much higher skill level. You've got to find the fold.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you saw, here's.
I didn't see when you actually put the design down. I saw the squares, but then that's when I think I was in the car, so I can only listen. So I
Right.
didn't actually see it.
Well, I'm glad
But,
you asked.
yeah.
That's great.
Cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right.
Did you paint any of those that are behind you?
Oh, behind me? Yes.
Behind, is it Judy Blake?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
My father actually did those pieces. I did this, but
Well, that's pretty.
thank you.
Is that lapidary?
It's fused glass.
Ah, pretty color. Yeah.
Those are watercolor behind you?
They are. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Is this like New Mexico here, the one to your left?
I don't. They did paint all over. I don't think so. I have a picture over on this side from Alaska. Oh no, we moved that. No, sorry.
So your father was a water.
He was an engineer and architect, and when he retired, he did watercolor. Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was.
So I think we have everybody back from the breakout rooms now. So we're going to move into our next portion. I just want to make a quick announcement that we're going to put the link to the survey in the chat now. So go ahead and please fill that out. Let us know what you thought of the workshop. Again, if you're an LAUSD or professional development credit teacher, please make sure you fill it out, especially that bottom portion. And I'm going to go ahead and share all of your lovely artwork now. And Judy's going to take some volunteers to share out.
Oh, great. Great. Okay, so now I need to, Laura, can you help with hands? Oh, that looks great. You got really thick lines. All right, can we have some volunteers from some of the breakout rooms, please, to tell us what you discussed?
Oh, I like that. Mm-hmm. Soft.
That's how much we loved it, but how nervous we were to do it with the kids because they have to be putting the water. We were thinking perhaps maybe like teach it and then with the support of the parents, having them do it and just kind of report back, but not doing it live. Do a live demo us, and then with the parent support, you're going to do this with your family, I promise tonight, and have them do it and then report back and share once it's sort of dried.
Oh, I
to
like
protect
that.
the equipment that belongs to the district.
Right. I always put a disclaimer with water and computers. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But we loved it. We were excited about it.
Good. Somebody else mentioned to me, and I'll pass it on, that they've done something similar and put it in like a baking tray and put it in the rain. Now, you have to have rain, or you could use a spray bottle in the sink. But those are other ideas to get things wet. Yeah, that's great. Wow.
Hi, Judy. One of the things we talked about was how looking at how these colors react to different types of paper towel, napkins, toilet paper. It could almost be like a science experiment,
Yes.
right? Looking at, different ply layers and tissue, the different types of paper towels, Bounty versus, the other ones to see which ones have a better absorbency criteria. Just trying to make it into like a science project.
Yeah, that's great. And now that everybody is into different plies of toilet paper and paper towels, that really adds to it. That's great. Thanks.
And Christina Dominguez, did you want to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in our group, we discussed that it mattered the type of marker you used.
The type of what?
Marker.
Oh,
the type of marker you used. Yeah, that some would bleed better, some just were resistant. We noticed that the Crayola, because they don't run as much, they weren't so great at bleeding. The old, the ones that LAUSD purchases that say watercolors like this, these bled very nicely. Same with these types. And so we talked about even experimenting, like someone was saying about the different paper towels, experimenting what would happen with the different types of markers. So that was something that we shared, just kind of making your hypothesis and seeing what would work better.
That's great. That's great.
What were the two markers that worked the best?
The ones that LAUSD tends to purchase, the ones that say watercolors. I don't know if you guys could see that one. These guys.
There's no brand.
It's called Liquimark.
Got it.
And it's the Liquimark. And then this one, the 4,000 water erase marker. These guys. I don't know if you can see there's like a little reflection, but these tended to work because they really ran. The Crayolas, I tried it on, I started and then I switched over to this one and it ran, the Crayolas weren't very runny.
I have used Crayolas before, but thank you very much. I think the idea of just trying that is great, and the experimenting behind, and I think the idea of taking a square and doing a design and then having an open it up, especially 4 ways, and seeing where that design goes, because most kids can't foresee that. And it just works really well. And, wow, look at the coffee filter.
And Jamie DeFalco, did you want to share?
Hi, yes, that's my coffee filter up there. And I wanted to share that when I put my napkin on a piece of paper, it transferred over and made another different design. So I don't know if you can see my screen, but it transferred over to a paper and all the little wet drops came through and it made a different design. So this was the napkin. It's actually on screen right now. And then on my little screen where you should see me, you can see my paper where it made it a different design just from drying it.
Well, I have done this, put diffusing paper and a paper towel. When I go into the classroom, sometimes if they have paper towels, we'll put a paper towel down and then it bleeds through and the kids want to keep their paper towel forever. They like all the colors that bled through to the paper towel. So that's always fun. Wow, pictures look great. All right, nice. Zigzag lines, straight lines, curvy lines. Very nice. Thanks everybody for sharing. Now, is this marker?
That looks like a squeeze bottle. Still a neat idea though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Squeeze bottle or not.
Thank you everybody so much for coming. We are sharing the registration link for Thursday's workshop in the chat, as well as the curriculum resources, a link to our online courses, and a link to our field trip signups. As I mentioned before, we currently have 6th and 7th grade field trips available. And the survey link is also in the chat, and we'll go ahead and put the survey link in again, just so everyone has a chance to grab it. If you have any questions for Judy or for me, feel free to stick around for another couple minutes. Otherwise, we thank you so much for being with us this evening. It was wonderful to hear you sharing with each other and sharing your artwork with us. And it's we're just so appreciative of this spirit of community in this time. So thank you for being here. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Phenomenal. I'm so excited to try this with the kids.
Great.
Thank you.